Do you know, I'm going to start this again. Hello lovelies, and welcome to the February 2021 episode of the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. Yeah, that's right. Hello, my name's Leslie. This is a podcast recorded on the south coast of the UK, and it's about yarny stuff. So knitting, crochet, weaving, spinning, anything that takes my fancy. Hope you're all well. Thank you so much for being here. If you're a new viewer, welcome. This chaos behind me is my office and also where I store my craft supplies. If you're a returning viewer, welcome too. You know what this is. So hello everyone, thank you for being here. For any new viewers, it's called Not Quite Enough Yarn because I rarely have enough to finish a complete project, and that will become evident throughout this podcast. Got a lot of yarn, just not all the same colour. So I often put stripes and fades and blocks and things like that into it. This will be a case in point. And yes, I'm back on a no buy yarn year. I started this podcast 3 years ago, and the first two I didn't buy yarn. Kept being given yarn, which was very kind of people, but I didn't buy any. Last year with COVID, wanted to support small businesses, so went a little bit excessive at times. It was lovely. So yes, we are back on the no buy, just trying to get the levels down a bit. So welcome everyone. I hope you're all okay. And admin first of all. Make along. I am running with the lovely, wonderful, and I love her because she calls me delectable, Kellyanne from Yarn Tales by the Sea, who I know in real life. I'm in a drumming group. She's the leader of our drumming group. She's a mate. Hey mate. She and I are running an accessory mal. So this is running all year, and it's any accessory. And we've defined accessory matching the definitions as on Ravelry. I know not everyone uses Ravelry, but as a guide, so it's any accessory for the person. So that can include socks, hats, gloves, mitts, cowls, leg warmers, anything basically that's for the person that isn't a garment. And the only other rule is start it after 1st of January this year. That's it. We both have groups on Ravelry, and we each have a chatter thread and a finished object thread. Finished object thread, self-explanatory, just put a picture up of your finished object, and by all means put a short description of what it is, the pattern, what yarn you've used, anything like that. You can also put that on the chatter thread, and then people can ooh and ah and coo and ooh and lovely. Yeah, I don't do full sentences, you'll get to know that. Yeah, so people can respond, ask you questions, tell you how much they love your colours, that sort of thing. If you are unable to use Ravelry, please do email me on notquiteenoughyarn@gmail.com, and we will enter you into the draw that way. We draw quarterly, and we're doing a draw on the chatter thread for a pattern prize and a draw on the finished object thread for a physical prize. So yes, that's all fab. Multiple dipping is very much encouraged, so by all means join both Kellyanne's and my groups. So like I say, she's Yarn Tales by the Sea. Obviously I'm Not Quite Enough Yarn. If I sat on my hands I wouldn't be able to talk. And enter in both. And enter any other any other make-along that allows multiple dipping as well as ours. So for example, there's been the New to You mal, which probably is finished by now, but If you made something that was a new technique that you entered that, you're more than welcome to enter into ours if it's an accessory. Now the wonderful Barbara from the Flame and Fibre podcast, with whom I had the absolute privilege of running the Stash Mail for the last couple of years, is running a year-long ode to joy. So it's whatever crafting you're doing, that is bringing you joy. And sidebar, I'm working on a jacket at the moment that I really want the finished object, but I'm not enjoying the make. I'm ploughing on with it at the moment, bit by bit, every now and again. I don't yet feel like I'm thinking, oh, I've had enough of this and I want to pull it all out. But for example, that would not be applicable to the lovely Barbara's make-along because it is not bringing me joy. But anything else that I make that does bring me joy, and let's hope it does, because otherwise why do we do this? Can be in Barbara's make-along, and if it's an accessory, by all means put it into mine. Join Kellyanne's group, put it into Kellyanne's as well. So a selection of ways to put yourself up for prizes, and hopefully this means you're making things that you enjoy, because that's the point. I record the podcast throughout the month and splice bits together. Having said that, today is the 14th of February. Happy Valentine's for those who celebrate. And yeah, this is the first bit I've recorded. I work as a funeral celebrant, and unsurprisingly, it's been a tad busy. Seems to be hopefully over the busiest period now. So I'll have a bit more time for sleeping, breathing, having dinner, that kind of thing. But also crafting, which is arguably the more important of those things, but we shall see. So yes, that is the admin, I think. Yep, all very simple and straightforward. If you have any comments, thoughts, observations, questions, any of that malarkey, please do comment below, and I hopefully answer everyone. I think I pick up everyone. I certainly intend to. So yes, comment below any questions, which may include, but Les, what are you wearing? Now, anything I'm wearing that's handmade, I will put in the description box below, so you can see what it is, the pattern and the yarn. This one especially I will, because I'm going to talk all about it, because this is my latest, actually my second latest, because I'm going to show you my latest in a minute, finished object. So we have here the Wave of Change pullover by Denise Bayron, and I'm going to stand up and show you it in all its glory. Now before I do that, I had all the same yarn but not all the same colour, but I felt this was a beach scene. So we go from the beautiful aquamarine sky. I know sky's never aquamarine, and this isn't either, it's kind of teal, but work with me, people. And then we go through to the sand and the depths of the sea. Yes, I am full of it. But here's the sweater. So we can see we go from teal to blue to light beige to variegated. It's quite a long sweater. Moving you back slightly. So it comes down to about halfway down my leg, actually. If I raise my leg up, you'll see that. That was attractive. I like sweaters this long. And I'm going to sit down again. I do find that a lot of my crafting life is trying to replicate sweaters that I've bought, commercially made ones that I really like. And I have a blue cotton sweater that I really like that's kind of that long. So obviously I'm trying to replicate it with this. So the Wave of Change pullover by Denise Bayron. I first of all liked the idea behind these designs. Last year Denise Bayron brought out the Wave of Change jacket, and this year we have the pullover. Was tempted to make the jacket last year, just never got around to it. It's a bulky yarn pattern, which put me off slightly because I didn't have any bulky yarn. So there was that. Now, the idea behind it is you have these pearl rows, and they symbolise the change that's been happening in the fibre community. And it's a very optimistic idea, and I love this idea that there is change, that people are thinking more about the feelings of others, about being inclusive to everyone, about not making assumptions on people based on anything other than their crafting. Yeah, so just a really lovely feeling design and just a nice vibe to it. And I was very keen to support that. So although I didn't make the jacket, when the pullover came out, I thought, yes, I will make that. So the yarn, this is souvenir holiday yarn from the last time I went abroad, which feels like a long time ago, but probably wasn't. And that was a holiday in Madeira. And I was just outside on the terrace one day knitting, and a member of the hotel staff, a lovely waitress, started talking to me about my knitting, and she knitted as well. So we got chatting, which was lovely. And I said, are there any yarn shops in Funchal? Because we were quite close to Funchal. And she gave me the name and directions of where to find one. And I was so grateful, because I would never have found it without her. And we all know what that's like. Often the yarn shops are not on the main drag of any high street or any kind of main street. They're off a little side street somewhere, because that's the nature of their business. It tends to be people who know about them go to them. And obviously that's a little bit cheaper on rates and rents and so forth than the main drag, so it all makes sense. But yes, I would never have found it, and it seemed to me a very old-fashioned type of yarn shop, in that there was a counter and all the yarn was on the wall behind the counter. So whereas we're used to now yarn shops where you can go in and squish and feel, this was very much, you would have it handed to you. Like I say, to me that seems old-fashioned. That may not be the case elsewhere in the world. I don't know. I'm not as well travelled as I would like to be, and maybe one day will be again. But this reminded me of the way that the yarn shops were when I was young. But lovely shop, and I don't speak a lot of Portuguese, which is sadly a very English thing to say when you then go to a country where they speak a different language. You just kind of talk louder and smile and nod. But I sort of went, please, por favor, obrigado. It's the extent of my Portuguese, sadly. But these yarns were there, and there were quite a few different colours, these different colours, and 1 or 2 balls of each. So I bought them, because you do. So the yarn manufacturer is Limol, which is a Portuguese manufacturer. And the yarn, it's the Trama Rusticana, and there's the 500/4, and I think this is to do with the fact that the yarn is made up of 4 plies. And there's also the Fantasia, and I think the difference is 2 of these yarns, so the teal and this paler blue, they each have a strand going through them. One of the plies is a silkier yarn. It's still cotton, but it has a slightly different texture to it. And I'll try and find you from my oddments. This is perhaps easier to see in the darker yarn, because the different colour is actually a bit darker than the teal, and you get this kind of shine in the lighter one as well. Now, in one sense, I had too much yarn. I know, because I have 1 ball left of the kind of mid-brown colour, and I had a word with my style guru himself, who just laughs when I ask him things, but actually he's very good with colours. He's not someone who cares about anything much in terms of what he looks like or anything like that. He'll just put on what's in the wardrobe, and, you know, doesn't matter if it's a really old shirt that's falling apart, and it's frankly embarrassing. Moving on. Not that it grates on me at all. But I had the multicoloured one and the plain brown, and I'd got to here and said which one, and he suggested the variegated, which I think was the right choice. Yes, I could have put both in and had a really long sweater. If you saw last month's podcast, you'd see I have form in that, but I decided to go with this. Now, these yarns are 100% cotton, and all the time I was working on this, I was watching Aquila from the Lefty Knitter podcast, who was making a crochet commission in cotton, and she was talking about how little she likes cotton because of some of its properties. And I was thinking, yes, all right, I know. But I quite like how this has come out. Now the pattern, because I love the idea behind it, I did have a bit of a problem, however. I was talking last month when I showed you my Gabrielle sweater about the change in proportions when patterns are scaled up and down. And in that case it was a central panel, and I was saying about how much of a proportion of the front it would be across the different sizes, because the panel was the same number of stitches. This one, the proportion was to do with the actual shaping of the sweater, and I had got down to here and I realised that it was turning into a sweater I didn't want. So I ripped it back and started again. I nearly ripped it back and didn't start again because I was getting cross by this point. But that concept really kept me going. What I had to do was change the proportion of the increases. So it's a top-down sweater, it's a bit of back shaping for the neck, it's a paid for pattern, so I'm not going to give away too many secrets, but the way that it was increasing for dividing for the arms, it would have meant that I would have split for the arms kind of down here. So it would have been the equivalent of there, this second ridge here. And that then makes it more of a dolman or a batwing sweater than the raglan I was expecting. Now when you look at the schematic, which is, you see once you've printed the pattern, once you've bought it, it does show a slight shaping at that stage. Now had I seen that, I possibly wouldn't have bought the pattern, because dolmans are not for me. I like a fitted sleeve. I like to be able to put a coat on over it and not have too much fabric here. And I know I sometimes make the boxy types, but I still like the sleeves to be fairly tightly fitted. Now this is purely my choice. So, much as I would normally say it's a good idea for the schematic to be available when you're viewing the pattern to make a decision to buy it, had it been available, I probably wouldn't have bought it. So, who knows on that one. So what I did was I ripped it back pretty much to the first sort of ridge, and I did the increases more frequently so that it then was flatter. And in fact at one point I was really worried because I seemed to be making, I thought I was making a tablecloth, frankly, because it just seemed to be this kind of flat oblong, flat oval. But it works, and it means that I split when I got to the kind of the number of stitches rather than the number of rows. I feel I'm not being very coherent, but essentially yes, more increases so that I split higher up, which then suited the silhouette that I wanted, and also the silhouette I thought I was getting, because when you look at the designer's picture, it looks like a regular raglan sweater, not with kind of this sort of excess fabric here that I would have had. Because I was then reworking it, I then had a bit of a rework anyway. So I think that actually the number of stitches I've used on the body and on the sleeve aren't what the pattern specifies, but they work for me, for the fit that I was after, because I wanted it to be have quite a lot of positive ease, but still with that relatively close-fitting sleeve. So that's a little bit of a gripe about the pattern, that I feel in the grading it is producing a different silhouette, and I know I'm going to have a different silhouette to someone who's, you know, a size 34 bust, because proportionately I'm very different, but in terms of the overall shape of the sweater, that looked to be producing something very different, and I was a bit disappointed by that. But don't let that put you off the pattern or any of Denise Bayron's designs. Her patterns are excellently written for making sure you do every stage. She has a little tick box for everything, even change needle size, because I can't be the only person who has carried on working down and then you suddenly think, hang on, I'm still using the smaller needle size that I used for the rib. And the row where you split for the sleeves, she has all the stages written down and you can just tick off each one. It's a really thoughtfully put together pattern. So although I have my gripes with it on a sizing point of view, in terms of how the pattern is written, could not be better. Absolutely ticking every box as you go along. You can't miss a stage. I do have another of her patterns, that's for a wrap, and when I make that, I look forward to that same level of clarity, that you can't think, oh, where am I? Because you are marking off each stage. So yes, that is my Waves of Change pullover. I used, how much yarn did I use? Oh, I knew I wouldn't write that down. Oh, I'll find out. I used a total of just under 1,300 metres. Now, as I say, the original pattern is for a bulky weight yarn. This is actually a double knitting weight yarn. I've always thought it was on the thick side of double knitting. I thought it was nearer a worsted. I gauge swatched because the pattern was initially for 6mm needles, and I did a gauge using this yarn, 5mm needles, and matched the gauge on the pattern. So it's possibly a kind of slightly looser fabric, you know, an area fabric than the original, but I like the fabric that I've got here. Being cotton, it will probably grow, but that's another reason why I wanted the close-fitting sleeves, so that if they go a little bit baggy, they're still not going enormous. And I'm going to be reworking a previous cotton pattern later this month, so I'll show you that later in the month. Yep, that's that. So that is finished object number 1, and used up most of that particular set of yarn. I did buy quite a lot of yarn, a lot of cotton yarn on that holiday, because as well as the yarn shop that the lovely waitress told me about, there were also other shops that had cotton, like crochet thread. So I got a few. Okay, my camera just turned itself off. It's obviously bored. I should stop talking about this pullover. 1,300 metres, in case that bit didn't record. Just under. Second FO. Now, I showed you this last month when I was working on it, and I showed you how I was making it. So if you look at this and you think, oh, that looks interesting, Leslie, how do you do that? Go back to last month's podcast. This is my cowl, my Broomstick crochet cowl. So let me just put it on, and you can see it is lovely and bright and colourful and a bit fabulous in the colour department. So, broomstick crochet, which I keep sounding like broomstick crochet, which don't know where that's coming from. I have a 25mm, which is a US size 50 knitting needle, which I use in lieu of a broomstick. And I used a 3.5mm crochet hook. And the yarn is Lang Yarn's Yarwall Magic Degradé, which is a 4-ply weight, fingering weight, so 400 meters for 100 grams. This used about 80 grams, and what I did is I worked a straight piece. Now initially I thought I had cast on enough stitches for it to go that way round, but it would be a little tight, I feel. So instead I just kept working and it's that way round instead. I just realised I've done an edging on the top and not on the bottom. Not sure how much I care about that. So yes, broomstick crochet, so the stitches are worked onto, they're just picked up like a crochet cast on almost, picked up onto the large needle, and then you just go into 5 at a time and work 5 stitches into the loop, which then gives you a row of ordinary crochet stitches. In my case, and these are UK terms, I did double crochet into the broomstick loops, then a row of trebles, and then another row of double crochet. So to translate, single crochet, double, single, and just kept going. Now this yarn, and I have some left, has a long colour change, which is why these stripes have worked so beautifully. It was just, I really feel like the yarn has done the work for me on this one, because I haven't had to do anything to give it this brightness and this colour. Now these stripes, they're not perfectly matched. You can see here we've got bright pink this end going towards green this end, but it is enough, it's a long enough colour change to give pretty much a row, or enough of a row to look like each item is one stripe. Had I made this with a more variegated yarn, would have had a very different effect. Possibly lovely, possibly not. Until I try, I won't know. But I am very pleased with this. The yarn is not as squishy as I thought, and when I first put it on when I'd finished, my first reaction was, oh, that's going to be a bit itchy, but it's not. You don't have to wear it for long before it just kind of sits happily. You don't get that kind of constant scratchiness. So yes, that is my cowl. I used 320 meters, so 80 grams of the 100 gram ball. Could have made it a little bit wider, but I like my cowls to be relatively close fitting, so that's what we've got, and I'm rather pleased with it. This, of course, if I were to enter my own makeaways, I'm doing it again, make-alongs, would fit into the accessory mal criteria. Made it this year, it's an accessory. But obviously I don't enter my own make-alongs because I think questions would be asked if I won. That is it for the moment, my lovelies. I am working on other projects, so I will keep you advised and keep you appraised and keep you informed of how they're coming along. Thanks all. See you later. Hello lovelies. Yes, we're in lockdown, so I've been cutting my own hair. Nice. I am wearing something that people who've been here a while might have seen before and might remember, but I made it probably a couple of years ago. This is the Divi adult hoodie. I'll put the details in the link below. I think it was a free pattern. And I have recently been revisiting items that I'd made that I realised I wasn't wearing, so I wasn't using them, I'd sort of go to them in the cupboard and think, oh no, not that. And this was one of them. And so I started to think about, well, why am I not wearing it? And it was because the sleeves were very baggy. Far too baggy. So I have unpicked the sleeves. I'd knitted them top down, although everything else in the sweater was bottom up, I think. I knitted the sleeves top down. Luckily I'd put a note in my project because I was playing yarn chicken. So they were very easy to unpick, and I just made them an awful lot smaller. This was about the 4th attempt, I think, because at one point I made them too small, then I made them too long, then I started off too big, then too small, then too long, then too... It was like the Three Little Pigs, you know, this porridge is too hot, this porridge is too cold. This sleeve is now okay. So the yarn is Araucania Ulmo. There are other yarns in the sweater. This is a Drops, and I think this is a Serda. But this main red, it's a hooded piece, Araucania or Araucania Ulmo. And I have some left over because I've gone from a sleeve that was kind of down to here to a tailored one. I'm not going to put it back into stash. I've already started making a hand towel with it, just a quick crochet, make up the pattern job. Because I thought it's 100% cotton, may as well get use out of it that way. So that is this. So it's the Divi hoodie, and like I say, it's not a new piece. I've just unpicked the sleeves and reworked them, and hopefully I will use this more now because it won't be annoying to wear. I always find that's a bonus with hand knits, don't you? Hello lovelies. I've just had the latest Pom Pom magazine. So Pom Pom Quarterly, which I'm a fan of. I've never yet made anything out of them, but they're so lovely. I just like looking at them and being inspired by them. And there are a couple of patterns that have really caught my eye, and actually they're on the front and back covers, although there are more in here that I like. So the one from the front cover, at first I thought, oh that's nice, but I don't really do a lot of colour work. Well, I have realised through further inspection that actually, you can see that, it's entrelac. But the way the colours are striped in the little squares are what give it that pinwheel type pattern. How clever is that? I was looking through it and I thought, oh yeah, that's interesting, and I thought, oh, that is very good. So that's that one. And that pattern, I should give it and the designer its name. It's called Lucky Pieces by In Young Kim, and I just am very impressed. I don't know that I'll make it, but I like the idea of it, and it's the sort of idea that has me going The other one that I liked, as soon as I saw it I thought, now there's a not quite enough yarn project if ever I saw one, and that is that gorgeousness, which is the Lisse by Amalia Sieber Kindred Red. And I think we've got two options for that. I think we can have it as cropped or as long. And the other thing I thought of when I saw it is that is quite an adaptable pattern. Now I read a little way into it, and these squares are all double knitted. So a bit like when I made that teddy bear the other month, you start off, you're basically making a tube with a sealed base. And it occurred to me that that could probably be adapted to make on the circular knitting machine, the old whirly whirly jobby. So there's a thought. Yeah, the theme this quarter is quilting, which you can see from the two pieces that I've just shown you.
But there are just lots of lovely things. I like that sweater. It's knitted sideways. It's knitted cuff to cuff. It's a dolman shape, which, as I've discussed in earlier parts of this podcast, isn't my preferred. But I do like the cuff to cuff thing, and could possibly make some adaptations. There's a beautiful shawl here, where the detail, the thing that makes it pop is the stitch detail. So lots of lovely things. There's the coziest looking blanket. Well, it's not a blanket, it's like a Rwanda type shawl. Oh, so many lovely things. So like I say, I don't know that I'll make any. I don't know that I'll make any in a hurry. But lots of inspiration in here. And articles as well, and the usual stuff. No doubt other podcasters will tell you all about their Pom Pom Quarterly magazine. It seems to have come through relatively quickly. I haven't seen other people talk about it yet. Normally I'm kind of 3 weeks behind and thinking, I want mine now, because I've heard all about it. But here it is, and very happy. We are beyond the 25th of the month, so I have gone back to prizes, and I had one skein of yarn that I was waiting for last month, which I didn't get the chance to show you, but it has now arrived. Here's a picture here. This is from Dusty Dimples. Isn't it pretty? That's now gone to the prize winner. I hope everyone's received theirs. I've had some notifications. Certainly everyone who's had a physical prize, it's gone out in the post to you. So hopefully you have received it, and thank you to those who let me know. There was an unclaimed prize. That's for the 2020 Stash Mal Q4 pattern. So that was on the chatter thread. So that's been redrawn. I'm having trouble with the word draw today. I've already recorded this once and said redrawn twice, which really isn't helpful. But I have redrawn, and the winner is the writer of post numbered 700, and your Ravelry name is H&G or Hand G, I'm not sure which, and you were responding to a comment from someone who was responding to a project that you'd put up. So please do get in touch by the 25th of March, H&G. You're in Australia, you know that, and let me know which pattern you'd like, up to a value of $10 US. That would be fab. So thank you very much. Now I have another pattern to give away as well, because the fabulous Lisa won a pattern prize last month and has very kindly offered it for redrawing. Lisa felt that because she hadn't taken part in the make-along, she didn't feel quite right claiming the prize, because she hadn't done anything beyond the one post that she'd put up. I did explain that there's no eligibility about, you know, how much you do or whether you complete the project that you put up as a whip or anything like that, but she would like me to offer the prize again, and what she very kindly said, slightly decline the prize and instead suggest that you use the money towards postage, or perhaps if there is a podcast viewer having a hard time right now, you could offer the prize to them. And she goes on to say that she's not had too hard a time within COVID, that her and her family are doing okay, and she would like to kind of share the love a bit more. So thank you so much. That is an incredibly generous offer. It's kind of you to offer that I use the money towards postage. This channel is monetized, and that pays for postage and prizes, so thank you for that offer. So I too would like to share the love, and so I would ask you to nominate someone that you feel you would like to have a pattern prize.
If you could do that by email, please. Email address is below, notquiteenoughyarn@gmail.com. If you could email me with someone you'd like to nominate for a pattern prize, that would be much appreciated, and I will get in touch with them and get a prize to them. I'll do a draw on the 25th of March, so if I could have your nominations by then, I'll do a draw and then I'll get in touch with whoever is pulled from that draw. So thank you so much, Lisa. That's very generous of you. Thank you very much. And yes, please do send me an email nominating a prize recipient for a pattern. Just someone you feel would appreciate a brighter spot. So thank you. I think that's nearly it for this month. It's a relatively short podcast for February. I'd like to say it's because it's a shorter month, but that would be nonsense. Work and life things have just made it very busy this month, and I haven't had as much time for crafting as I might otherwise have had. So that's why we only have a sort of small number of FOs and reworks. Excuse me while I just get dressed on camera. You can't buy class, can you? And yeah, that's kind of it. So February we've gone through snow, and today we have sunshine, and it's been all sorts. We've had rain, we've had everything, and I know that compared to a lot of places in the world, Australia's had fires, Texas has had snow, people have been through some pretty extreme stuff, so I hope that you've come through safely, with keeping, most importantly, yourself and those you love well, but then hopefully the things you care about as well, and just are able to keep yourselves well. Coronavirus wise, the numbers seem to be going down pretty well here. Lockdown feels like it's been going on for a very long time. The vaccinations are being rolled out. I had mine this week. I had mine because of my work. Because of the rules around funerals, I was eligible, so I went and had mine. Himself had his last week, and we don't know for sure why, because we're just about coming into the age bracket, but not quite yet. But we are assuming it's to do with the surgery he had this time last year. Given that that was lung surgery, we are assuming it's because of that. He's considered a higher risk. So yes, we both had our first vaccination, second one to follow in 12 weeks. And so far so good. On the vlog yesterday I was saying didn't feel a thing. Have actually had a bit more tenderness in the arm today, and you know, the last sort of 24 hours, but really nothing. You'd have to thump me in the arm for me to really swear at you. Top tip there. So so yes, we are moving on. I mean, it's still very busy from a work point of view. The problem with funerals, and I will go on to funerals for a brief moment here, I'm not called Knitting or Death for nothing, they're the two things I talk about, because there was a very high death rate for a while. The speed at which funerals could keep up, excuse me, we couldn't do as many funerals as we had people who died, so it's meant there's been a long delay. So although we now have fewer people coming in, we're still dealing with the delay that came up, the backlog, which is a horrible way to describe it when you're talking about people's loved ones. But yes, we're still dealing with people who have died quite some weeks ago and doing their funerals now. So that will hopefully right itself. Yeah, I will stop doing this as well. Hope it doesn't mean anything rude in a language I don't speak. Yeah, so we are getting through those funerals, and hopefully, you know, giving people the closure and so forth that they need. And we're getting back to sort of shorter turnaround times. Again, horrible phrase to use given what we're talking about. So at the end of next month, so I'll be putting the podcast up in 4 weeks' time, and then I will be a little bit demob happy possibly, because I'm going to have the week either side of Easter as a break from work. It occurs to me that if I had been working for a company, I used to work in finance, and if I'd been working for a company as long as I've been doing funerals, I would probably have sort of 35, 40 days annual leave every year, and I don't, as a rule, so I'm going to. So yeah, I'm going to take a bit of a break at the end of March into the beginning of April. That also coincides with the part of the easing of lockdown, so I'm hoping to be able to see some family members and go and sit in their garden and drink their tea, and actually meet in person my great niece, who is 3 months old, and we've had video calls with the family, but we haven't actually met her. So my niece was beginning to worry, she'll be at school before you meet her. Well, hopefully it won't come to that. So those are the plans for the month. Yeah, that's kind of it. Thank you as always to everyone who watches, who comments, who likes, who subscribes, who puts up with this nonsense for up to sometimes beyond an hour every month. So thank you so much for being here. I hope that you're all well. I hope that you're able to just keep plodding on. It does begin to feel like there's a light at the end of this particular tunnel, which we hope isn't a train coming towards us. And I hope that that feeling is the same everywhere, and that people are, I know in some places people are kind of back to a kind of normal, and let's hope that that's rolling out everywhere. But the main thing is, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, be well. I hope that you find time to do crafting and that it brings you joy, and that you are contented with your lives. Let's go for that. So thanks everyone, take very good care. I'll see you on Friday if you watch the vlogs, and I'll see you in a month's time if you watch the podcast. So thanks, take care, keep well, and have fun. Cheers, bye bye.